Hello, everyone, and thank you for being here with me today. Before we begin, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your city or state in the comments. I read every single one. Now let me take you into the moment that split my life cleanly in two. My mother didn't raise her voice. She didn't argue. She simply smiled over her dinner plate and said, "Evelyn, be practical. He loves her now. Let them have the future." That was how my marriage ended, served alongside steak and red wine at my parents' dining table. I was 36 years old, married for 11 years, when I learned my husband, Nathan, was expecting a child with my younger sister, Lila. He was sitting beside her, his hand resting protectively on her belly, while my father stared at his glass as if silence could erase reality. No one asked how I felt. They only discussed logistics. Who would live where? Who needed stability? Who deserved support? And somehow, the conclusion was unanimous. I would step aside. What they didn't realize was this: that night didn't break me, it woke me up. And if you've ever been the one expected to sacrifice because you're strong, this story is for you. Shock is strange. It doesn't scream, it freezes. I remember gripping my fork while my sister spoke, her voice soft, almost rehearsed. She said the timing didn't matter, that love was complicated, that the baby was innocent. Nathan avoided my eyes. When he finally spoke, he asked me not to cause a scene. That phrase followed me my entire life. Growing up, I was always the capable one. Lila was delicate, emotional. My parents framed it as compassion, but it was favoritism dressed in concern. When something had to be given up, it was always mine. When money was short, my needs were negotiable. I carried that pattern into adulthood. I built a career in corporate finance, climbed steadily, worked relentlessly. Nathan called himself an entrepreneur, though his ventures never lasted. When he struggled, I filled the gaps. I told myself that love meant support. What I didn't realize was that support had turned into entitlement. After that dinner, I left without saying goodbye. I drove for hours, rain streaking across my windshield, replaying every late night, every unexplained expense, every business trip he couldn't attend. And then the denial cracked. I checked our accounts. Hotel charges during my conferences, jewelry receipts dated on Lila's birthday, cash withdrawals labeled business expenses that lined up perfectly with her emergencies. It wasn't just betrayal, it was theft. The next morning, Nathan came home with moving boxes and confidence. He spoke as if everything was already decided. The house, he said, was marital property. The law would be on his side. My parents agreed. They sent emails. They called relatives. The narrative was efficient and cruel. I was cold, successful, selfish. He was emotional. She was pregnant. I should be generous. Instead of arguing, I documented. I printed statements, saved messages, organized timelines. That's when my friend Harper arrived. No warning, no hesitation. She took one look at me and said, "You're not losing a family. You're escaping a system." Harper helped me remember who I was before I tried to earn love by paying for it. We reviewed my prenuptial agreement, signed years earlier at my mentor's insistence. Nathan hadn't read it. He'd laughed, said money didn't matter to him. The document said otherwise. Assets held in independent entities remained separate. Infidelity voided spousal claims. Financial misconduct mattered. We met with a family attorney who specialized in quiet outcomes. She didn't promise revenge, she promised clarity. The strategy wasn't confrontation, it was consent. Nathan believed I was desperate to end the humiliation. He wanted speed, he wanted freedom, he wanted access. So we offered a settlement that looked generous at a glance. Quick divorce, no lawsuits, clean break. He skimmed. He signed. The moment the papers were finalized, everything changed. The house wasn't his. It never had been. It belonged to a holding company established before our marriage. Without a lease, he was no longer a resident. The accounts he relied on were closed, the cards stopped working, the protections vanished. On the night of his wedding to my sister, security enforced a legal eviction, quietly, professionally, no shouting, no drama, just consequences. A week later, we met one last time in a conference room. I laid out the audit, the debts, the liabilities. I didn't threaten. I offered terms, non-disclosure, no contact, clean separation. They signed. When it was over, I felt nothing explosive. No triumph, no anger, only relief. For the first time in decades, no one needed something from me. In the days after everything unraveled, I stopped replaying their words and started studying my own patterns. I realized how often I had mistaken endurance for love and silence for maturity. I had been praised for being easy, understanding, and low maintenance, without noticing that those labels only benefited people who took without asking. Nathan didn't just betray me emotionally, he relied on my predictability. He knew I would smooth things over, pay quietly, and absorb discomfort to keep the peace. My parents depended on that same reflex. They framed compliance as virtue and resistance as cruelty, teaching me that my worth increased the more I gave up. Once I saw that pattern, I couldn't unsee it. I stopped negotiating with my past. I didn't write long explanations or closure messages. I didn't defend myself to relatives who had already decided who I was. I learned that clarity doesn't come from being understood. It comes from understanding yourself well enough to stop arguing. The silence that followed was uncomfortable at first. Without constant demands, my days felt strangely empty. But slowly, that emptiness filled with things I had postponed for years: rest, curiosity, and a sense of agency that didn't depend on approval. I rebuilt my routines intentionally. I separated my finances completely. I simplified my life. I chose friendships that didn't require me to perform strength at all times. For the first time, my success felt personal rather than communal property. There were moments of doubt, especially at night, when old guilt tried to resurface. But guilt loses its power when it's examined. I reminded myself that boundaries are not punishments, they are protections. Walking away didn't make me heartless. It made me precise. I stopped bleeding energy into places that never healed. And in that precision, I found something I had been chasing my entire life: peace that didn't cost me myself. It was quiet, deliberate growth, built day by day, choice by choice, until I understood that freedom isn't dramatic. It's steady, self-directed, and earned by refusing to abandon yourself again, even when guilt returns disguised as responsibility falsely. It's been a year since that dinner. I moved cities, took time off, learned what silence feels like when it isn't punishment. I stopped apologizing for protecting myself. I used to think strength meant endurance, staying, paying, absorbing. Now I know strength is discernment. It's knowing when love turns into leverage, when generosity becomes permission, when family confuses access with entitlement. I didn't win because I outplayed anyone. I won because I stopped negotiating my worth. If you're listening to this and recognizing yourself, the fixer, the provider, the one who's told to be the bigger person, please hear me. You don't owe anyone your life because you're capable. Close the accounts that drain you. Set boundaries that don't require explanation. Protect your future like it matters, because it does. If this story resonated with you, tap like, subscribe, and drop a 1 in the comments so I know you made it to the end. You're not alone, and your strength deserves respect. Thank you for listening. This was necessary to tell.